Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. All praise due to Allah, and His blessings and peace be upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his family and his followers until the Day of Judgment. My dear brothers and sisters, welcome to one of your new episodes in your program, The Robe That Binds Us. Last episode, we talked about the titles and the names and labels that the people of the Sunnah and the people who follow the Jama'ah, or the people of ahlusunnah waljama'aah, or the true followers of the tradition of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to be called with, or even they used it to describe themselves with it. But here there is a very important point to mention and related to this issue. One, these names and titles never meant to be a tool to divide the ummah, to exclude certain people out from the circle of the followers of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It never been used as a way to take out from the ummah of Islam some true and sincere followers to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as it might be used sometimes in the history or even in this modern days, that people use this to label certain group and to exclude others. I believe this is not the way the early Muslims, scholars and the early Muslim generation used to, or this is not the way they understood the meaning and the uniqueness of these names and titles. These names and titles meant to identify and to explain the nature of those people, to identify and to explain the belief of those people, that they believe in the Sunnah, that they believe in the concept of Jama'ah and the unity and the support and the obedience to the Muslim rulers, and not to break the Muslim ummah and to fight one another, or to invent something in the religion which can harm this ummah or cause the people will disagree on these new invented matters. So these names and titles meant to identify the people who believe in the truth, not to exclude others, or not to be taken as a way to classify this ummah in a way which can contradict the meaning of unity. You might ask a question: why they use these names? Why we need to use these names? Or do we need to use them today? And if not, why they've been used in the past, these names? This might be a question you raise. Isn't it enough to call ourselves Muslims and that's it? Mu'min and that's it? First of all, we have to understand that titles and names something appeared even in the Prophet ﷺ's time, that Muslims used another title beside just being a Muslim, or being a mu'min, or being a muttaqi, such as al-muhajirin and al-ansar. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself used these terminologies to describe the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But these titles never ever divided the Muslim community during the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's times. People used to be recognized with titles like he is Habashi, or she is from Medina, or he is from Mecca, she is from Egypt, Egyptian, or Basri, or Iraqi, or Yemeni, etc. So these titles and been exist in the time of the Prophet ﷺ and after the Prophet ﷺ's time as well. So this is not something new. But these names, which has been used through the history of Islam, unlike the name which is given by the Quran and by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These names and titles may carry different connotations and meanings from one time to another. And the best example, You remember in last episode I said, and sometimes in the history of Islam, they used to call those who follow the Sunnah Hanbali. And this terminology, Hanbali, later on became a title for those who follow the school of thought of, or the school of fiqh, and certain people who follow Imam Ahmad rahimahullah in his opinions, or those scholars who came after the students of Imam Ahmad, who established a madhab or a school of thought called the Hanbali madhab. As we have the Shafi'i, the Maliki, the Hanafi. But in one time in the history, Hanbali never meant to be a title for those who follow Imam Ahmad in the fiqh issue. It always it's been used to refer to those who follow Imam Ahmad in the matters of aqeedah, when he refuted the concept of khalq al-Quran, that al-Quran was created. Also, Ahlul Hadith, another good example. Ahlul Hadith today, in recent days, for example, you will see it in the subcontinent, been used to be the Hanafi and the Ahlul Hadith. The people who follow Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, and Ahlul Hadith, the people who follow the Hadith. As if there is a contradiction between following the Hadith and follow the madhab of Imam Abu Hanifa. And that's not true, because Imam Abu Hanifa, among the people of Hadith, because he believed in the Hadith, he based his fiqh, his opinions on the Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So Imam Abu Hanifa among Ahlul Hadith. But later on, this terminology, Ahlul Hadith or Ahlul Athar, been a terminology used to describe those who are involved in studying the science of Hadith. Not like the way it's been used in the early time, those who accept the Hadith. No, it became a title for those who are a specialist in the science of the Hadith. They know about the narrators, they know about the history of the narrator, the authenticity of the narrations, and so on. But later on, this is now the way it's been used. But before, it used to refer to those who accept the Hadith, the Sunnah, as a source of religion. So you see, these titles and names, it might change from one century to another, from one time to another. That's why there are certain rules we need to understand and to learn about labeling. Labeling one self with titles. If somebody want to use certain to label somebody with a title, can we just use any title? Is there any rules we should know before we go forward? Yes, there are certain rules ahlusunnah, the Muslim scholar, said in order for us to use any title or any label to describe anybody with. First rule: label must have correct meaning. Correct meaning according to the Sharia, to the Islamic rules. This label that people describe themselves with, or this name or this title that they want to describe themselves with, it has to be first correct. We cannot adopt a title which has wrong meaning Islamically, or unaccepted meaning in Islam. So this is first rule. Second rule: should not be used as a basis for associating and disassociating, because these names and titles are not from Al-Quran and Sunnah. For example, let's say a group of people said that we are the people of Al-Quran in this community or this center. We establish a community center, and we call this community center, for example, Masjid At-Taqwa. So the people of Masjid At-Taqwa, or the people of this association, or so the people of this association, or the people of this group. If this is the case, and this meaning accepted Islamically, I cannot base my relationship based on this title. So if you're not from the group of the Masjid Taqwa or the Masjid of Sunnah or the Masjid, whatever the name is, I don't associate myself with. I feel that there is a gap between me and you. And it can be even go farther, that people will love you just because you're from this group or carry this title or carry this name. But if the name from the Quran is Sunnah, I love the believers. I love the people who follow the Sunnah. I dislike. I don't want to associate with myself with somebody who is fasiq, who is a sinner, or a person who practiced the major sins openly. This is what you call the fasiq. I want to stay from such person. Because this title, al-fisq or al-kufr, the disbelief, is a title in the Quran and Sunnah. It has the negative meaning, and this negative meaning given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and by His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But other titles, which is people invent, cannot take the same rules. And I cannot praise or criticize somebody just because he is from this group or that group. Just because a person, for example, said, I follow the way of Salaf al-Salih, it's not enough, this title, to make you good. Or it's not enough to make you bad, to say, I belong to so-and-so group. Because we judge people based on their actions, not based on their titles. So even if there is a title being used, it cannot be used as a way to judge people. That's why Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, Shaykh al-Islam, said, it's not from the way of ahlusunnah. They judge people by the names that have been invented later on, or names do not exist in the Quran and as-Sunnah. I give you an example. One of the names that people, which is accepted Islamically, to say, for example, I am Shafi'i or Maliki, or I am from Egypt, from Saudi Arabia, from America, whatever country you come from. I'm Latinos, or I am white or black, whatever title I want to use. I cannot use this as a way to just love whoever from this country, because I cannot use this title or these names as a way to judge people either positively or negatively. The third rule should not be used as a mean to divide the ummah or to divide this Muslim ummah. In the Prophet ﷺ's time, we all know that they used to have these names, Al-Muhajirin and Ansar. Once, one of the Muhajirin and Ansar, they were drinking from a well or pulling the water out from the well, and there's a problem happened between one of the Muhajirin and one of the Ansar. So what happened? The one from Al-Muhajirin said, Ya al-Muhajirin, the one from Ansar said, Ya al-Ansar. All the Muhajirin, all Ansar. So the Muslims divided to two groups. The Muhajirin want to support the one who is Muhajir, which came from Mecca. The Ansar want to support the one from their city, from their town, which is Al-Madinah, the Al-Ansar. So they were divided to two groups based on that and start fighting each other. In this case, these titles and using these titles was forbidden, because it was a tool to divide the ummah. It's a tool to bring division and to break the unity of the Muslim. That's why the Prophet ﷺ criticized that's so much, and he said, Jutha Jahannam, this racism can lead to the bottom of the hellfire. If I use this as a tool to divide the ummah and a way of, or a form of racism to divide the ummah, it will become even a major sin. Also, should only be used when there is need for it. When there is need for it. Some people love to use these titles instead of the beautiful titles that be given to us in Quran and Sunnah. I don't use these titles if I don't need it. If I don't need it, I only use it when there is need. That's why they use the word ahlusunnah waljama'aah when people start rejecting the Sunnah, and they said we are the follower of the Sunnah. When people break the jama'ah of the ummah, they said we are the people of al-jama'ah. Otherwise, we should stick to the words or the title being given to us by Quran and Sunnah, which is al-Muslimin, or the Muslims, the mu'min, the believer, and so on. The last rule, unlike the names given in Quran and Sunnah, these names or these titles, we should always remember it might change from one century to another, carry different connotations and meanings from time to time, as I said early. This is very important fact. It should be remembered. And as I said, these names meant to identify the people, to bring people together, not to divide them. Inshallah, we will start talking about the Sunnah and the Jama'ah in details in the next episode. I will see you then.